Hello, my name's Timothy Barton. As many of you know, I've recently been hiring an assistant, and I promised to share a video with some tips based on the recruitment experience I've had and tips on how you can improve your applications for your jobs. The first thing I want to say is that first impressions are really, really important. And so as the person looking to recruit, the first impression I get is when your email comes into my inbox. And so I think it's really important at this stage that you that when I see your email, I see your name spelt correctly and spelt with a capital letter for the first name and a capital letter for the surname, initial cap. And if you want to know how to ensure that this happens, most people now are using Gmail, so you go to settings, and after you've clicked on there, you've got an option on the right hand side which you can't see now that says see all settings. And once in there, you go to accounts and import, and you go to your send mail as information. You click on edit info, and here this is where you write your name. So here we write our name as we want it to appear in people's inbox. The next thing is the subject line. I'm going to see your subject line before I even see your email, and that's going to have an impression. That's going to leave an impression. So make sure the subject line, your spell checker is probably not working on the subject line, so you need to check it carefully. So make sure it's spelt correctly, make sure it's clear. So the subject line is really important. Then the next thing I'm going to see is your email message. So again, make sure it's well written. This is usually going to be quite short because you're going to include a cover letter as well. The cover letter should usually be in a separate document as an attachment. So just a short message saying, dear recruiter, or in this case, if you've done a bit of research, you should have seen who the recruiter is. So you can say, dear Mr. Barton or dear Timothy Barton, and then you'll just say something like, please find attached my cover letter and CV for the job that was advertised on LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever you saw it. And then you're going to attach a cover letter and CV. So these are the next things I'm going to see. So these are quite important as well, that they need to be well written. The first thing I do when I get a cover letter, I literally just scan through it in about 2 or 3 seconds. And at that stage, I'm already eliminating a lot of candidates because I'm seeing spaces before commas, I'm seeing spelling mistakes, I'm seeing capital letters not being used correctly. I mean, I had over 100 candidates, so obviously I'm going to try and eliminate some as quickly as I can, and some candidates I literally eliminate in less than 5 seconds. So make sure these things are well written as well. They should be good quality documents. Do not, if you're sending an application by email, do not print your CV and cover letter and then scan it. Convert to PDF. Yes, you should be sending it as a PDF if possible. You can convert to actually in Word now. You can save as PDF within Word. If you've got an older version, you use a PDF conversion tool, so you then print it to a PDF. But some of the copies I got were really, really poor quality scans, and there's no need to be printing it at all if you're sending an application by email. And then check through. Use your spell checker. Double check the names and spellings of institutions. A lot of the information I'm giving now is really, really important if you're applying for the kind of job I was offering, which is working for a company providing language services. I cannot recruit somebody who is not going to send emails with no spelling mistakes. You must be able to send emails with no spelling mistakes. So check the name spellings of institutions, for example. There was one candidate referred to the Namibian German Centre for Logistics, but he was referred to 3 different ways in the same letter. It was like Centre for Logistics, then it was Logistics Centre, then it was Logistics Centre. So you really need to be reading through your applications 3, 4, 5 times before sending them. Another thing, if there are relevant questions, then ask them, because that will help you stay in the mind of the recruiter. I'm going to remember if you've asked questions. Don't ask silly questions, but if there are relevant questions, you can ask them. But before you ask questions, and this is really important for everyone, even if you don't have questions, please read the job description and read the instructions, okay? To give you some examples, in my post, the post that I had available, I said something like, candidates whose mother tongue is not English are encouraged to submit a CV and cover letter in their mother tongue. Hardly anyone did this, and that included people who said that they translate into their mother tongue, or people who said that they write in their mother tongue. It's very easy for somebody to say that, but the reality in Namibia is that not everybody studies their mother tongue at school. Not everybody learns to write it correctly. So this was your chance to show that you can. And obviously you're going to stand out if you do this. So yeah, I know this was quite unique. It's not going to come up in most vacancies. But if you read the job description correctly, then you would have seen that. Obviously, you're only going to do that if you really can write professionally in that language. So look out for opportunities to prove your competence in a certain area. If there are other jobs that require a language but they've not requested a CV or cover letter in your language, then maybe find another way to prove it. Maybe you have a YouTube channel where you use your language. Maybe you have some content on LinkedIn or a website or a blog where you use that language. And then moving more generally in your cover letter, rather than just claiming things that you can do, back them up with something, right? So in the case of a language, instead of saying I speak English and Oshiwambo, you could say I speak Oshiwambo and I'm the owner of the Cooking in Oshiwambo YouTube channel. Okay, I'm making up an example, but maybe you help your local school translate their newsletter into a certain language, or maybe you do something for your church with the language. Explain what you use the language for, or if there's another skill. If you're telling me you're skilled in Excel, what have you done with Excel? And it doesn't have to be something professionally if you haven't worked yet. If I go back to when I was newly qualified, I'd used Excel to do like a fantasy football competition, and I'd created my own Excel spreadsheet for that did all the calculations. So maybe there's something that you did, that you've done with Excel, that you can explain that you've done. Another thing regarding reading the instructions, so in my case, I said that it requires working in arrangement. So maybe a way that you can show that you read the instructions is to say, I am aware that the post is in arrangement and I am willing to relocate. And that tells me that you've read the instructions. It's quite frustrating when I get back to somebody and they've not actually seen this, and then they withdraw because they say they don't want to work in arrangement, when I've made it clear from the beginning that that's a requirement for the job. If you don't meet the job requirements, I did have a few applications, 2 or 3, from people who don't have a university degree, which was a requirement. Don't just hope that I don't notice. Be upfront. Say, okay, I don't have a degree, however, I've got experience in this, or maybe you could say something like, I couldn't complete my final year for financial reasons, but my marks for the first 3 years were excellent. Explain why you're applying even though you don't meet all the criteria. And then many had poor use of punctuation. Now, in a minute, I'm going to tell you not to use ChatGPT, but this is the kind of thing you can use it for. You can say something like, please improve the punctuation in this text. Are there any grammar problems in this text? And it will point them out to you. Okay? But now moving to the topic of tailoring your CV, don't send a generic cover letter. Okay? Don't say don't just say for the above post or something even. I was getting things that were even more generic. Tailor your CV, tailor your cover letter to the post you're applying to. And actually you can tailor your CV as well. You can put more emphasis on similar jobs that you've done in the past, for example. You can emphasize certain skills that I'm looking for. Don't use artificial intelligence. Really, I can tell. To give you an example, almost all the probably about half of the applications I received started with a sentence that ended with "as advertised," and then in the second paragraph they had the phrase "honed my skills." And I was just seeing those same phrases over and over again. And it's because people are using ChatGPT or something else to create their cover letters. So if you're saying to ChatGPT, write me a cover letter for the position of an assistant to a translator, and somebody else has put the same prompt, then you're going to get pretty much the same cover letter. Okay? Also, it means your cover letter is generic because ChatGPT doesn't know about you. Okay, I want to hear about you. So you should be writing it yourself. Please use the spell check, the grammar checker in Word, and then you can ask ChatGPT to point out mistakes in your cover letter. Some people ask ChatGPT to rewrite it. You can do that, but then you'll find it's coming up with the phrases that it would have come up with if you just asked it to write it in the first place. So I would recommend maybe just asking it to point out any mistakes or maybe phrases that could be improved, and do it that way. Don't come out with generic statements where you're just statements that show that you've not read about the post. So I received one cover letter, for example, that said, your company's reputation for excellence in the marketing industry. I don't work in the marketing industry, so why is that sentence in there? Okay, it's somebody with I think it was somebody with a BA in marketing. So they were probably looking for a marketing job, but that's not exactly what I was offering, although marketing was part of the job description, but that's not the industry I work in. Okay, I don't work in the marketing industry. I work in the translation and editing sector. So find out as much as you can about the job, about the company. For example, read the website. Check out the blog. Check out the social media channels. And then you can get lots of information and you can tailor your letter to that company. Another thing I received was, I'd like to find work in the tourism sector. Well, again, I don't work in the tourism sector. And then statements like, my skills are ideal for your company. Well, which skills are you talking about? And give me some examples. How have you used those skills? Like what I was referring to earlier with the languages and with Excel. So you could say something like, since 2020, I've produced a YouTube channel, which you can see at wherever it is. This has allowed me to develop my video editing skills, which will allow me to create video marketing content for your company's YouTube channel. And you'll know I've got a YouTube channel because you've done your research about the company, so you will have found my YouTube channel already. Now, Other examples of things you can say that tailor your cover letter. You could say something like, the job description says that knowledge of African languages are an advantage and that there may be opportunities to translate. If you were to hire me, I would be able to translate texts into Oshi Herrera, which was the language I spoke at home growing up and which I studied at school. Maybe you could also say your marks that you got. Or you can say something like, the job description says that my responsibilities would include editing bibliographies. I've attached a copy of a dissertation I wrote for my degree that included extensive referencing. Okay. Don't try to flatter. Going back to the phrase, your company's reputation for excellence in the marketing industry. I know when I see that, I'm kind of like, has this person really found out that I have a reputation for excellence? Or have they just thrown that phrase in there? And then going back to proofreading, really important. But it's especially important when I've said the candidate must have excellent English. That's in the intro to my job ad. So if the candidate must have excellent English, then your cover letter and your CV must have excellent English. LinkedIn. Most of you have a LinkedIn profile. Get content on there, please. Not just reposts. When I look through, I go to your profile, I go to posts, I look at the post. If all I'm seeing is reposts, then I'm wondering whether this person is able to produce content, because that's something that you're going to have to do for me. And LinkedIn only shows content from the previous 90 days. Okay, so you need to be posting fairly regularly. And the other thing, like, recheck old information. It's fine that when you were fresh out of school, you maybe made spelling mistakes and that kind of thing, but go over like the section of the experience, go over it, recheck it, remove any spelling mistakes, make sure the names of the organizations are correct. Then if you are invited to interview, make sure you're there on time. If it's online, make sure you have a good internet connection. And look the part, even if it's online. If you wear professional attire, it will show that you are taking it seriously. And prepare. If the advertisement said that Excel skills are desirable, there's a strong chance you're going to be tested on Excel. And then if you do an evaluation, make sure you read the instructions carefully. And I think my final piece of advice would be, look for ways to stand out. You know the employment situation in Namibia, so any job you apply for, there are going to be possibly hundreds of candidates, at the very least 24 or so. So you need to find a way to stand out. So remember what I said about first impressions. Make sure your CV looks good. Make sure you have a well-written cover letter, and just look for ways that you can stand out. Maybe that means creating a little video introducing yourself. There are many ways that you can find to stand out. So yeah, do that and make sure that you're noticed.